My name is Halena, Jauca, and I live in Vancouver. I am a school teacher and a mother of 4 kids. I was born in 1970, and I was born in a small place in Canada called Kamloops, but I grew up in Vancouver, spent most of my life in Vancouver. I have a sister, older sister and a younger brother, so I am the middle child of 3. My parents are from the hippie time of the 1960s, and by that I mean that their values were always very focused on the development of the individual and on spiritual principles. And so I was raised in a family with an awareness of the importance of spirituality in one's life. We did a lot of fun activities like camping and outdoor activities. We always had a lot of music in our family, a lot of art. The focus in our family was always making time to do things together and spending a lot of time doing activities outdoors, hiking, canoeing, camping, and we always went to our family cabin on a small island nearby called Nebriola Island.
You are my long lost friend. Good to see you once again. I'm no longer on my own. No need to travel alone. And now that I found you home, hey, I'll never leave you all alone.
As a kid, I lived mostly just outside of Vancouver on a farm, and my dad loved horses, and so we took care of other people's horses on our farm. And when I was 8 years old, I think, 7 or 8, I can't remember, he bought me a pony. Every little girl's dream is to own a pony. So my dad bought me a pony, and I looked after it up until we moved to the city when I was 10. I always loved school, and the school I went to in my early years of grade 1, 2, and 3 actually was a tiny little school in the countryside where we only had 2 classrooms, one for grades 1 and 2 together and one for grades 2 and 3 together. I liked school so much, and I think my teachers recognized that when I was in grade 3, my teacher one day asked me to be the substitute teacher when I was only probably 8 years old at the time. So she left me with a plan to look after the rest of the class while she had something else to do that day. So it was kind of funny when you look back on it as an adult and you think, I can't believe that my teacher did that, but it was very nice. I went to a high school that was located at a university, and so there were a great deal of students at the school whose parents were professors, and so it was a very academically focused school, but also a very artistically focused school. It's about 350 students in the whole school from grade 8 through grade 12. When I was 12 years old, in grade 8, I met a Baha'i who was in grade 12, and because it was a small school, we would often meet people in different grades. You kind of knew people from all across the grades, not only your own group. And that Baha'i was from a family from Iran, so they had been refugees in Canada, and we just happened to be at the same high school. He was the first Baha'i that I met. And through this friend of mine, I heard the story of Mona Mahmoudnejad, who was a martyr in Iran, together with a group of Baha'i women. About 1984 or 1985, a Baha'i musician from Canada wrote a song about her. And for that song, he created a video about her, which was probably my first exposure to her story. She was a Baha'i in Iran who, at the age of 16, was arrested for being a Baha'i and for the fact that she had offered to provide education to the Baha'i children. Mona did this out of her, on her own time and out of her caring for young children, and then was sent to prison along with a group of Baha'i women.
This is where I've got to be. Taken in the night, her heart's full of light. She said, this is where I've got to be.
After I'm not sure how long a period of time they stayed in prison in Iran, she was executed together with the group of women that she was imprisoned with. And they were hung one by one for being Baha'is, simply for being Baha'is. And her story was especially moving because she asked that she could be the last person to be executed so that she could pray for the strength of every woman that went before her. I found this very moving. And in addition to that, she had said that if her suffering and her martyrdom could result in youth from all around the world joining hands, working towards the cause of world peace, she would suffer this same fate again and again. So her story was very moving, and it prompted me to really, as I said, really investigate the Baha'i faith. And one thing I found intriguing about her story was that the date that she was martyred was June 18th, 1983. I was 13 years old at the time, and when I heard her story, it was a year or two after it had happened, I knew exactly what I had been doing on that day. So I remembered that I was at a friend's house at a birthday party because I remembered the date. It was the date my friend celebrated her birthday. And I thought very deeply about how we were in Canada doing fun things together, a group of young girls, and this Baha'i young girl, not much older than I was, had suffered to be martyred at that time. I knew a little bit about the Baha'i faith from this friend, but her story really inspired me to want to know, well, who are these Baha'is and why did she give her life for her beliefs, and what were her beliefs? So I began to investigate more about the Baha'i faith, what it stood for, what its teachings were, what was the situation of the Baha'is in Iran, why were they being persecuted. And over time, I became also involved in Baha'i youth activities. And then at one point, I just wondered, why am I saying that I am the one person who is a part of this effort and this movement to help build peace in the world, but I'm not a Baha'i. And so if something changed within me that I felt, no, I am a Baha'i, and that being a Baha'i is not something that you change from one thing and you become something else. It's more of a recognition of who you are and what your values already are. My understanding of the Baha'i faith at that time was that a very important principle in the Baha'i faith was respect for your parents and family unity. So when I had decided that I wanted to be a Baha'i, I decided to sit my parents down and to, in a way, ask for their consent or their feedback. What did they think of that idea? And it was very special because my parents always raised me and my siblings to follow our own beliefs and to make our own decisions. And so they really had no concerns, and that was very special for me. They were very supportive. I remember that my mom asked me, well, if you decide to be a Baha'i, are you allowed to change your mind later? And I said, well, of course, we always have freedom of choice of what we do with our lives. So that was kind of a special and I think a very reasonable question to ask your 15-year-old when you didn't know a lot about what they were joining, right? They didn't know a great deal. I went to Costa Rica for 2 months and then just offering I went with 2 friends from Canada, and we offered services in the Baha'i community of Costa Rica in whatever way we could. And then after that, I had applied to be part of a youth group who would create a dance and drama presentation and then travel throughout Canada. The group was organized by the National Assembly of the Baha'is of Canada, And it was called Let It Be This Generation, with the thought that, okay, we want to encourage young people to think about what a difference they can make in the world. How can we bring peace to the world? So we spent about, once I was together with that group, we spent about a month preparing this dance and drama presentation. And then we had a very, very full year of touring and presenting and meeting lots of amazing people who shared those same values. After that year, I went to university for 1 year. That was 1989 to 1990. And during that year, there was an important message from the Universal House of Justice, the international governing body of the Baha'i community worldwide. And they wrote a message to the Baha'is of the world explaining that it would be a good time to bring the Baha'i teachings to parts of the world that had not really had much exposure to these ideas. And that part of the world was Eastern Europe and some parts of Asia. And so I had a very close friend who I had traveled to Costa Rica with, who also at the same time read this message. We both spoke Spanish fluently, and we learned that there was a country in Eastern Europe where Spanish was a useful language to have. Useful in that the language of that country was not Spanish, but it was very similar, and that country was Romania. So with this friend together, we made plans to visit that country. So after my first year of university, we visited the country, we participated in the projects that Baha'is were engaged in at that time, and first of all, we fell in love with Romania. It's a beautiful country. And then we saw that there was a lot happening and a lot of activities. So it was July and August of 1990 that I went to Romania for the first time. I participated in a project where a musical group from Spain, a Baha'i group from Spain, came to Romania and presented the Baha'i faith through music. It was a very beautiful presentation. And a project had been organized so that for this group. The group itself traveled around the country from city to city, but before the actual group of musicians, there was a group that went ahead of them. I think we called them the avant-garde group. They went ahead, they put up posters and invited people to the concert. Then that group would go on to the next city, right? Then the musical group would come and give concerts, present the faith through their music, and then they would move on. And then the third group, which I got to be a part of, which was really fun, was the follow-up group. And so we would stay behind where the concert had been and answer people's questions about the Baha'i faith. There were, I think, 5 of us in that group traveling. And it was during that time that those 3 weeks that the Baha'i community of Romania expanded rapidly. So at the beginning of the project, there were about 150 Baha'is in all of Romania, in the entire country. And by the end of that 3 weeks, there were over 500 Baha'is. So the community had expanded rapidly through all of these various efforts and through a wonderful spirit of that place at that time where people were really open-minded and interested in learning about things that they had previously not really been allowed to learn about, because during communist time, speaking about religion or spirituality was really not allowed. Neither was speaking to foreigners, so speaking to anyone from another country, not allowed. During that 3-week trip towards the end, we were driving from one city to the next. A friend of ours was driving, and another Baha'i who had decided to move there as a pioneer. They were in the front of the car. My friend and I, who had come on this trip, we were in the back. And one of those two said to us, "So why aren't you moving here? Can't you see that a lot is happening and we need people to come and help?" And my friend said very adamantly, "Well, we are coming, but we're going to come in a year." My friend and I, who had traveled with, had thought one day we'll return and we'll live there. We'd love to live there. But for now, we need to continue our studies. My friend had actually received an enormous scholarship to continue her studies in a master's degree, a very prestigious science degree, and she was all set to begin her degree, and I had only completed 1 year of university. So we said, we can't come. We have these plans, but we'll come in about a year's time. And at that point, one of the two friends in the car, in the front of the car, said, well, we don't need you in a year. We need you now. And at that moment, I had decided I am going to return. I don't know what's going to happen with my studies. I don't know what my family will think, because no one was traveling to Eastern Europe at that time. It was a very unknown place. It had had a very violent revolution in which many, many people died. But we decided that was it, we're going. When I moved to Romania, I wasn't sure exactly what I would be doing first, except that I would continue to help the Baha'i community in whatever way I could. It was a very special time because a lot of people had suddenly joined the Baha'i community, and there had never been a 19-day feast or never been a local spiritual assembly or a celebration of holy days. So what we were doing at the beginning was very exciting. We were simply we were assigned to a different, each person that arrived was assigned to a specific community, and our goal was to go there and serve that community, help establish the local assembly, help in any way we could. And it was a lot of fun, and really we met such wonderful people. And during that period of time, I met my husband, who was a Baha'i from Romania, who had become a Baha'i since before the revolution, which is kind of amazing, because there were very few chances of meeting someone who was a Baha'i and understanding what the Baha'i faith was. We met in October of 1990, and we were married in March of 1991. So really just 5 months after we met, and it was a very special time. We both had the support of our parents, and we both felt very strongly that serving the Baha'i faith comes before everything else, and that if we were together, we could serve the faith better than if we were just individuals doing different things. So it was a very special time. Not being brought up in a Baha'i family made me always question, well, what do Baha'is do? How do we raise our children? What should we do, and how do we engage them in developing for themselves a sense of what it means to be a Baha'i without at the same time forcing them one way or another? So whatever we did in our Baha'i service, we brought them with us and engaged them in our activities, and also explained to them what we were doing and why. It doesn't matter your past. If your heart is searching, your answer will come like a breeze.